We are live again. I'm sure there's nobody on here this quick, but as is my wont, welcome once again to the magisterial live stream for Modernists here on Twitch. The man of 1,000 heresies is engaging in more dirtbag behavior by being in a game and in a group, so I cannot invite him. We will see what happens after this game. But hello to everybody as you start logging in. I guess you get hit probably with commercials immediately as you log in, and that's part of the thing. So,
I never wanted to be Iron Man, but it worked out for everybody.
hopefully you'll enjoy. Yeah, I tried to post the falling off the map clip as a YouTube short, but something went wrong. So it is there on Twitch. I'll probably take another shot at it. See if I can get it to post as a short.
Coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
Tell me why I should introduce you to Scrap this very second, Ultron.
My encoded virus could make humankind immortal.
We have beaten death before on our own. It came at a cost.
All organic life.
The battle starts in 5.
So,
3, 2, 1.
this Magneto skin is Magneto infected with the Ultron virus. So, there's also a Hawkeye skin coming soon where he's infected by the Ultron virus and therefore looks kind of bored. Yeah, I played the new game mode a few times. First of all, it's too dang long. Like, if there was like 5 rounds of that and then you were ranked after 5 rounds, I would probably play it more. But like, I've had games go like 16, 17, 18 rounds. It just takes too long. Like, and it's kind of rock, paper, scissors, like switching out characters on your teams. So, it was okay. I played enough to get the Ultron 1 spray. But it's sort of like, no, I'll compare my win-loss ratio. I've only played 3 games. I got first place in 1, I got second place in another, and the third game, I think I got 4th.
Goodbye. For now. There's still a chance to stop them. They hit a checkpoint. Now might be a good time to stop.
So, yes, it is. Cable's techno-organic virus is related to the Phalanx, whereas Ultron's, like, he generated himself. It's basically his code, infecting people and taking them over. Because, of course, Ultron is an AI that Hank Pym made as a really goofy-looking robot originally, and he has since then, like, upgraded himself over and over and over again. In the comics, Ultron has numbers. There's like Ultron 19, Ultron 20. The original one being Ultron 1, because he continues to upgrade himself. So the idea is he managed to take his code and he managed to take his code and turn it into a different kind of techno-organic virus. And he released that techno-organic virus on Mars, which is where Arakko is, which is the new map.
There's still a chance to stop them.
I think St. John Chrysostom would have split the difference and been a Captain America guy. In terms of, I saw somebody asking about the cycle of Jewish feasts for their trans Jew friend. I mean Hebrew roots friend. But I didn't get the end of the... Yeah, he wouldn't read comics. So if the person with the question about the Jewish cycle of feasts could re-ask it, repost it, that would be good. We basically do all. It's just some are more obvious which they are, right? So, like, obviously Pentecost is Pentecost, and obviously Pascha is Pascha, right? Like, some of them are very obvious. But if you look at, especially very early, like 2nd century theophany-related texts and iconography, there's a lot of light motifs, not late motifs, light motifs going on in there that are deeply connected to Hanukkah and a repurposing of Hanukkah, which of course is in our Old Testament and not theirs. There are a lot of connections, including the blessing of first fruits and stuff, between Transfiguration and Tabernacles, including the, you know, St. Peter asking, let's build 3 booths. Basically, St. John's, a lot of this comes from St. John's Gospel, because St. John's Gospel is structured around 3 cycles of the feasts. And so you get to see Christ sort of commenting on or embodying or transforming each of the feasts. Yes, the incarnation is eternal. So basically, we do celebrate all of the biblical feasts. Some of those are really obvious. Some of those you have to dig a little bit into the liturgics to find the connections.
Pick your hero. Or villain. I'm not judging.
No timeline exists where Magneto yields.
Okay. Alan Segel has another book called Heaven and Hell that's actually really good, about Jewish and then Second Temple Jewish and then early Christian views of quote unquote the afterlife.
There's an organ called a brain, Ultron. It created you. And I know that drives you crazy.
The battle starts in
There was
5,
another question in
4,
there that I was going to say something
3,
about, but now I
2,
lost it. So
1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
They say that music brings the world together. But right now, I think we need superheroes for that.
because I went off about Alan Segel's book on Heaven and Hell.
I'm hurt.
for that question about dispensationalism,
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now.
the last 3 episodes of Lord of Spirits have all been basically about that topic. So we could, I mean, I don't know if I would turn that into a book per se. I mean, maybe eventually on a long enough timeline. But for now, at least, because if I do such a book, it's not going to be for a couple of years at least. So for now, at least, you can listen to those 3 episodes on dispensationalism. Yeah, so there are... Part of what I'm doing there at Apocrypha is, right, that the Holy Tradition of the Church, of course, is a whole and is intact, right, and is always intact, but every generation has to sort of reappropriate it, right? Every generation has to, you know, study the scriptures, study the fathers, study our liturgics, right, and learn about those things. And so, at any given point in time and in any given region, so if we're talking about just Orthodox Christians in the United States, right, there are parts of Orthodox tradition that have been emphasized, right, like patristics. And that's good, right? But there are other parts that have not been as emphasized, right? Like scripture interpretation, beyond just citing what various fathers say about texts of scripture, has been de-emphasized. And so that's part of what I'm doing in my books, is trying to reappropriate some of those things. And especially a book like Apocrypha, right? There's a bunch of texts that I go over in that book that are part of our inheritance, right? They're part of the Orthodox tradition, but that this generation, at least in the United States, hasn't really reappropriated for itself yet. A lot of people aren't familiar with them. And so, becoming more familiar with them again, that gives us treasures that might, you know, cause them, once we're more familiar with them again, to have a greater influence on the life of the church in the United States. So it's not a question of something changing in terms of how we view those texts. It's just a question of people becoming more familiar with that part of our tradition, and therefore it being more formative of how we practice that and live that out here in the United States. I haven't followed the Peruvian mummy thing. The last Peruvian mummy I saw was the Thing along a roadside. If you've ever driven through Arizona, like New Mexico, the California desert, you know what I'm talking
30
about.
seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Curious. Your metal shell does not bend to my will.
My alloys are non-magnetic, a strategic design choice.
A step above a sentinel, that is for certain.
Evolution.
It possibly is. We don't know for sure.
Battle starts in 5, 4, 3,
But there were
1. All you need to do is capture the mission area.
there were a fair number of Jewish groups. It's usually the ones with the elaborate angelologies, and I think the ones Sagal is referring to are connected with Jewish astrology. So they identify the angels involved, connected to various heavenly bodies, right? The angel of this, that, and the other. Right? Because, of course, they saw not just the sun, moon, and stars as being angelic beings, having angelic beings connected with them, but that they served a role. And they're getting this from Scripture, right? They serve to mark the seasons and the times, right? And they govern the day and the night, right? According to Genesis. So that's what I think he's referring to. What I think Alan Sagal is referring to. And I don't know that
They captured the mission area.
I don't know that that's what St. Paul is actually referring to in Colossians. It very much could be, but I don't know that that's what he's referring to.
This is my unnatural selection.
These waves will not break.
I couldn't rest the
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just
I don't have strong feelings on the calendar thing either, other than to say, calendar debacles are as old as time. The reason the Qumran community that produced the Dead Sea Scrolls split from the mainstream Pharisees was because they wanted to use the Enochic calendar. The real irony of the whole Orthodox calendar debate is that the Julian calendar is actually the one that the Sadducees used. That was the wild half-pagan liberals used the pagan Roman Julian calendar. It was like the least holy calendar. The Pharisees used the calendar from the Torah. Yeah, the like Qumran and other groups use the Enochic calendar that's based on First Enoch. There's a massive section of First Enoch that lays out that whole calendar. But yeah, the Julian calendar was right out. And now, when you listen to these calendar debates, a lot of the people who are sort of really dogmatic about the old calendar act like the Julian calendar is some holy thing. When, you know, it was considered just the opposite. Eternal, you don't really have eternity starting at a point. That's a misunderstanding of what eternal is. Eternal isn't an endless succession of moments in time, because that absolutizes time. It makes it something God didn't create. It makes it something that God is subject to, which of
30
course
seconds before you attack.
he's not, and it isn't. I have too many sprays with Magneto.
Your nip.
friends have saved my life far more times than weapons.
So when we're talking about eternal, we're talking about an eternal reality, which is in sort of
The battle starts.
another
4, 3,
register of existence beyond space and time. Which is why you will see some of the fathers talking about
Got it?
humans in eternal life who have experienced theosis becoming unbegotten. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about eternity considered in that sense.
Maximum pulse!
Yes, there are indeed spray loadouts.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
So on each character I have a different spray loadout based on that character.
A nice deep freeze. Another hit for Luna.
So when this is part of the mystery of the incarnation, is that so I think it is fair to say that the world becomes eternal when it is transfigured and resurrected by Christ. Yeah, if I missed them, go ahead and repost them.
Nice deep freeze.
Us against the world.
Just don't repost them too fast or I'll miss them again. Yeah, we're talking about things being eternal. Like, humans are not eternal in and of themselves. That's not part of human nature. right? But humans become eternal, right, through Christ. But yeah, so when you hear the hymn of the Cassianian, it talks about the sinful woman kissing the feet that Adam and Eve heard walking in the garden. That's more literal than a lot of times we take it to be. But that, again, is part of the mystery of the Incarnation. That's a mystery.
That's me.
The area's almost yours.
Well, there were certainly different Jewish groups and different individual Jewish teachers and stuff who had different understandings of the two powers in heaven, right? So, and a lot of those, frankly, correspond to a lot of the early Christian heresies, right? So there were Jewish groups that believed that the second power in heaven was an angelic being, like an angel. So we're talking about, like, you know, basically what would become Arianism, right? Like, and there were groups that thought that the second power in heaven was a former human who had been exalted to that state, like Enoch or Adam or Moses or David. Yeah. So I don't know of anybody who was just like, oh, any view like that is absolutely heresy no matter what, before, you know, Christianity. But certainly there were people who disagreed about it. And some of that disagreement probably would have been to the extent of, like, oh yeah, those people over there who think XYZ are heretics, you know.
See, this is why I protect my flesh parts.
Their team's capture progress.
But even today, if you talk to an Orthodox Jewish person, as I sometimes do, there are versions of that they're fine with. Like if you talk to them about Philo, you know, there are certain understandings and ways of framing the idea of the divine logos where they're like, okay, yeah, that wouldn't be heretical. Now, the Christian way they think is heretical, right? But but they'll say there are ways to hold to that they still to this day wouldn't say are necessarily heresy, right?
Extermination!
Rebirth is a mutant's greatest gift.
Enjoy the amplifier.
Maximum pulse!
Ultron reign supreme. Drone strike complete.
Let's keep fighting until we have a winner. My legs are cold.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man.
Give me just a second. We're kind of in a tense moment. So somebody asked about the full Orthodox understanding of the fear of God. I don't know if I could give you the full understanding of anything on a Twitch stream, but
Well, you can't expect
the word fear there is an older usage of the word fear. Just like sometimes we have in some of our liturgics, it'll talk about God being a terrible God, and you're like, wait, what? right? Like, that's an older use of terrible, right? And so when we're talking about fear of God, we're talking about not being afraid of God, but of awe or reverence directed toward God, right? And therefore, respect directed toward God. Watch my narcissism at play here. I did excellent. So that's what that is about. And what Proverbs is getting at when it says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, meaning that awe or reverence toward God is the beginning of wisdom. What that's aimed at is the idea that wisdom, key to wisdom, is knowing what you don't know. Right? Having an awareness of what you don't know, where you're not an expert, right? And of course, that begins with God, who is ineffable, unfathomable, right? Beyond our ability to understand. And so if we don't have awe or reverence toward Him, then we're not going to have the kind of humility that's necessary to have real wisdom.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
If you could, Magneto.
So every time I see a lull in chat, I wonder if people are getting commercial. So I'll say what I always say. I don't ask for people's money. But if you have Amazon Prime, which most people do, you can get you can use your free Amazon Prime subscription to subscribe to my channel and skip the ads. So. I have to go with my alma mater, St. Tikhon's, on principle. Even though I have not been there in, gosh, 16 years, I will still support my alma mater. Top 5 horror films. So this list changes. But probably Hereditary right now, at least. You're asking me right now. So probably Hereditary, Late Night with the Devil, the original Pet Sematary, I'm going to say, even though it's a really meta pick, the original Scream, because I like Wes Craven, and the original Hellraiser. That's what I'm going to say today for my top 5 horror movies. So that might change if you ask me tomorrow. Like, much of Deep Space Nine casting was done from the Hellraiser movies.
Judge, jury,
Mutants always rise again.
Yeah, but saying Hellraiser 1 and 2 are the best of the series is not saying much. Yeah, I don't buy that part of Sagel's thesis about Gnosticism. Although I will say this. Although it got a lot of bad press, you know, from the anti-woke crowd especially, I thought the recent Hellraiser remake, even though it had a female Pinhead, was actually pretty decent. I mean, I'm comparing it to Hellraiser movies since Bloodline, so, you know. But it was pretty decent. It wasn't as good as 1 or 2, but it was better than 3.
Is a mutant's greatest gift.
They hit a checkpoint. Now might be a good time to stop them.
Even though, you know, 3 did have Jadzia Dax in it and a dude who killed people by throwing CDs at them. So, I mean, that's hard to beat.
Better stop that vehicle.
Yes, I am actually a fan of little watched Clive Barker movie Lord of Illusions. That's one to look up if you've never seen it. Scott Bakula is in it, playing a character who is in a bunch of Clive Barker novels. Harry D'Amour, who is a private detective in New Orleans. And Lord of Illusions is based very loosely on one of his short stories. Based very loosely on one of Clive Barker's short stories about Harry D'Amour. But it's an interesting movie, and I kind of wish it had done a little better and turned into a series for Scott Bakula playing the character. Famke Janssen is in it, early in her career, like right after Goldeneye.
Judge! Jury,
and she's Dutch, so she can't be all bad. And I will say this also about Lord of Illusions. It's probably the least gay thing from Clive Barker. So there's that.
Self-guided spider bombs? Yikes! Welcome to the dark
A lot of Clive Barker stuff has a lot of gaiety in it, like Nightbreed, for example. Yeah, there's actually a lot of Nephilim stuff in Manichaeanism. There's a Manichaean recension of the Book of the Giants, like the one we found at Qumran, but it's a different, very different version of the book. And most of the difference is that those Manichaean traditions are incorporating a lot of the earlier Persian giant and gigantomachy traditions.
Mutants always rise again.
Yeah, that's always hard to judge. people assume that, you know, that the place that's called that today is the place that was called that then. But regions move, witness Macedonia, rivers change course gradually over time, etc., etc. So...
I'm ready to put on a show! It's Spider Time!
Yeah, so within Pharisaic Judaism, there's an idea of hypostases of God. But it's closer to what we as Orthodox Christians would call the divine energies today, I'm talking about today, than it is to the idea of, like, the Holy Trinity of divine persons. And so that's essentially what they were doing. They were saying the multiple thrones, set for judgment, right? One for judgment, one for mercy, right? That this isn't sort of two persons of the Godhead, but two divine energies. God in the action of fulfilling two different roles, right? That sort of thing. Well, yeah, in terms of the United States of America being the whore of Babylon, to be non-controversial, right? Referring to, of course, the figure in Revelation. If you really want the whole lowdown on that, you can listen to my Bible study on that part of Revelation in the whole Council series. But essentially what that's talking about there in that passage is empire. Particularly the empire vis-a-vis trade. Commerce. And I think it's incontrovertible that post-World War II, the United States has been the world empire, especially when it comes to trade and commerce. Right? Before that, it was the British Empire. But World War I really put the stake in that, and then by end of World War II, it was done. And before that, there were others, right? Going all the way back to, you know, the empires of the Old Testament, and then Rome. Yeah, so I mean that's the core of it, right? And in terms of being drunk on the blood of the martyrs, I mean, until not too long ago during my own lifetime, within my lifetime, not that long ago, there were 1 million Christians in Iraq. There aren't anymore. Why? Right? Like, I think we know why. So, right now, as far as I can tell, the U.S. is doing absolutely nothing about Egypt seizing St. Catherine's Monastery. Why? Right? Because trade relationships.
Charles dreamed of a St. Petersburg.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
I have made it a reality.
Well, the problem with that view, I mean, it's confusing the particular judgment, the general judgment, but the whole bit about the last trumpet and the shout and like lightning shining from the east to the west, I mean, maybe he thinks that's going to happen when he dies personally, but that seems a little narcissistic. that every human on Earth would instantly be aware of his death. But, you know, if someone wants to believe something based on their reading of the Bible, you can't stop them, right? They can just be like, oh, well, all those passages you're referring to are metaphorical. It's like, well, okay, you know. You know. Anybody can play that game to support just about anything. Any passage that disagrees with me is metaphorical. Any passage that seems to agree with me is literal. It's why theological arguments between Protestants get really tiresome, because it's just like there's no referee, right? You're both just pointing at the Bible and making arguments, and there's no way to mitigate.
Rest easy now. So it begins. Ah, that's better.
I shall not be removed so easily.
Yes, that is a good mindset for Inquirers to have. I tell people repeatedly, there are some people here who were Inquirers and then catechumens at my parish who are playing with me right now. And I tell them repeatedly that the only people show up at the Orthodox Church for all kinds of reasons. They want to become an Orthodox Christian and join the church for all kinds of reasons. But there's only one good one, and that's that the Orthodox Church is the place where you find Christ. And if it's the place where you find Christ, right, then that you should want to be there. And that also gives you the advantage of not having to sit here and go through like every point of doctrine. Right? Like, oh, I have to be convinced on every single point of doctrine that the Orthodox are right. No. If the Orthodox Church is where you find Christ, if it is the Church of Christ, then whatever the Orthodox Church teaches is correct, right? And so it's more learning what the Church teaches than a long series of arguments trying to be convinced of every single thing. Right? Somebody asked the wildest showdown idea that I don't think Ancient Faith would let me do. Every time I've done one of those, I've come up with one of those, we've done it. I don't always tell Father Andrew or Ancient Faith what I'm going to say. I often don't tell them what I'm going to say before I say it. But I have never really had to talk out. The only thing that Father Andrew won't let me talk about, and here we go, exclusively on my Twitch stream. On the Magisterial live stream for Modernists, exclusively. What did Alexander the Great do in Egypt to be proclaimed as Pharaoh and as an Egyptian god? He had the priests anoint his phallus with sacred oil. And there are numerous murals from the 4th century BC, in Egypt, depicting the anointing of Alexander's phallus with oil from a bowl that you can see. And let me tell you, those Egyptians were very kind and generous with Alexander in how they depicted him. I will leave it at that. So, but yes, if you really want to, you can Google that. Go to images and see those murals. Every time I try to talk about that, Father Andrew gets apoplectic, so I haven't yet. But now, you good folks who tuned into this now know all about it. So, for example, adultery. Under normal circumstances, divorce bars one from the priesthood. Again, like with all canons and everything in the Orthodox Church, bishops can make exceptions in particular instances for particular reasons, pastoral reasons. But in general, divorce does. Usually apostasy does. Like if you've actually left Christianity and come back, it's good that you've come back, but you will usually not be made a priest.
Another epic victory! Big win!
Same thing in general. Again, we'd like them to come back, but usually they won't be made a priest because there's questions about how stable they are. I don't think you could get Father Andrew to play this game. I have gotten Father Andrew to play a couple of games. He's more into stuff like Civ. I got him to play Lord of the Rings Online a little bit, but not much. I saw something about apostasy and priesthood, but I missed the whole thing.
Win this one.
Be wary. No timeline exists where Magneto yields.
If apostasy started in childhood? Like a child apostate?
I will do what it takes to protect my people.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Fishman. Ugh. Hulk hates stupid fishman.
No, it's more like if you were Orthodox and left the Orthodox Church for some reason.
One good reason not to toss you back into the ocean.
Yes, you can. But you must have laughed heartily at William Lane Craig in order to be made a priest at that point.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's leave little robot to big tower.
Yet another reason why I rarely come to the surface.
Oh, there was a great moment where I was on the YouTube chat while he was on a live stream, and I literally made him squirm in his chair when he was talking about atonement. Like he physically squirmed in his chair. It's a very old episode of Remnant Radio that he was on to talk about his atonement book.
Almost there. Don't turn back now.
Bart Ehrman has friend of the show status because I actually kind of like Bart Ehrman. We don't agree about very many things. Well, there are a fair few scholarly academic type things we agree on. Right? Like, he's actually an expert in text criticism, and most of what he has to say about text criticism, like his revision of Brutes Metzger, who is his mentor's book, is still the standard book on text criticism. Okay. And I say this as the guy whose book on text criticism is used by is now used by the Antiochian House of Studies. His book on text criticism is in the bibliography of that book. It's his revision of Metzger's book, but still. So, we do agree about that kind of stuff. We disagree about a whole pile of other very serious and very important things. But I just kind of like him as a dude. Right? He gives I respect the fact that he gives a ton of money to charity. Like, a ton of his money. For a lot of the things he does. He's one of those people who isn't a Christian, but acts like one a lot of the time. I also really respect the fact that he has publicly changed his opinion on significant things.
Your powers are mine. We are undefeatable.
Right? Which scholars don't do, right? Like, they still want to sell copies of their old books and get royalties, right? So, like, they don't come out and admit, like, oh, hey, I don't agree with that anymore that I said in that book. They won't admit it because then they might not sell as many copies of their book and they want the royalties. No one publicly changes their mind as a scholar and academic. But he has on really significant things. When I say significant things, like, he used to say that St. Paul didn't think that Jesus was divine in any sense, and now he says that he thinks St. Paul did. Now, he thinks St. Paul was an Arian. So I think he's wrong about what he thinks St. Paul believed. But he did change, and he did get a little closer to the truth in that change. But he publicly made that change and said, no, I think that, no, he thought he was wrong before. And, you know. So, and there have been several things like that. And so I respect that academic honesty, that he's still studying and still learning and just willing to change his mind about things. And that's a quality that I try to emulate. Even though there's some guy on Amazon having an absolute fit about how it's immoral for me to still sell copies. Not immoral for me, immoral for Ancient Faith to still sell copies of Religion of the Apostles, because I've publicly said that if I went back over it, there are probably things I would change. Now, years later. That, according to him, makes it immoral to sell the book. Ooh, that was Dirty Pool. But we still won. Having the moon haunt me during the Eye of Agamotto. But anyway, so that's why Barterman has friend of the show status. I did not intend to watch Flush Gamer's highlight. Especially since he spelled gamer that particular way. You should definitely go to the museum at the University of Berlin, because I think it still has the Throne of Satan. And who doesn't want to see the Throne of Satan?
The right heroes could make all.
By that I mean the high altar of Zeus from Pergamon that St. John calls the throne of Satan in the book of Revelation. So you can actually see the thing he's referring to in the book of Revelation with your own eyes. Yeah, the next book I have coming out, hopefully sometime into this year, is the Bale book. Which is subtitled A Biography of the Devil.
Stay strong.
So I'm hoping it'll have an even more metal cover than God is a Man of War did. And then the book after that I'm writing now is going to be the book on Atonement.
It came at a cost.
Which will,
In 5, 4, 3.
I'd like to think we'll put a stake in penal substitutionary atonement once and for all, but, you know, there are a lot of folks, especially Calvinists, pretty heavily invested in that idea. As I said, they think it's the gospel, so I don't think any book by me is really going to finally kill that thing, but... But we'll at least present what the Bible actually says about it, sort of the history of it. I would prefer Animal Crossing.
Enemies on approach.
Here they come to kick us out.
Rebirth is a mutant's greatest gift.
Time to heal.
Pulse charge.
So I think I got enough of that question before I got cut off to answer it. Yeah, I think our parishes do need to look more like communities and more like families and less like vendors where people show up to get the sacrament and then go home. And there are a lot of good churches that have done that. But yeah, if you're going to one and it's kind of in the not so great category, it can be hard to figure out how to what to do to start making that kind of change. But the key thing is you start by finding a few like-minded other people at your parish. You find a few other people who are on board with that and want to have that kind of parish-family relationship. And then you just start getting together with them. You know, you stay after church and spend time, coffee hour time with them. You go and do things together outside of the church context, right? And you sort of build from there. And once you start doing that, other people will join. Not just new people, but some of the old people will see what's going on, and they'll start hanging around. You'll get, you know, the old guy who's been the president of the parish council since the Eisenhower administration, who will feel guilty that he doesn't know all these new kids hanging around the church, you know, and so he'll start showing up once in a while and talking to you, and gradually over time that kind of community develops, right?
Judge, jury, executioner!
Better stop that vehicle!
And don't feel like you have to force anybody to participate. Anybody who doesn't want to participate, just leave them alone. Right? Let them be until they show up and decide they want to, you know? But that'll be attractive to people. I have not played much Half-Life 2. So I'll decline to weigh in on that. Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of odd duck parishes and ethnic parishes and stuff. But I don't believe that in any given parish you couldn't find a couple of other people who might want to go see a movie with you or something. Or hang out and watch a movie at home together. Or, you know, hang out after church and have a cup of coffee and talk about something not church related. Right? Yeah, that's the place where it starts. Part of what that does is it makes your church as a whole more attractive. Because, frankly, while people are looking for God, right? That is what people are really looking for. They don't know that, they don't think that, they don't realize that, mostly. But what they realize they're looking for is, like, human community and friendship and, right? And so... Oh, you lame bot advertisement.
Shall we, Emma?
Judge, jury, executioner!
Disappear!
And not the cool Ultron virus that makes you look like an awesome cyborg Magneto either.
Don't give them another inch, or else.
Some kind of lame virus that just takes your credit card information.
The world.
Power cannot be quelled.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
Kosuke Koyama is not familiar to me. Bot Sister could also be a weird anime. Oh yeah, someone asked about Adam and Eve needing salvation too. Because salvation is not primarily about sin. Salvation is about us drawing closer and being more deeply united to God. That's what salvation is about. And that's an eternal and endless process. Because the distance between human beings and God is infinite. So you never reach a point where you've sort of explored all of the depth of the riches of God. And so Adam and Eve needed that. You and I need that. The Theotokos needed that. St. John the Forerunner, who was sinless, needed that. Sin is just an obstacle on that path that Christ removed. But Christ, in the Incarnation, made that path a reality and made salvation possible. But let me ask you this. If you just never committed a sin, why would that earn you eternal life?
4, 3, 2.
Why would that earn you union with God? Like, I never committed adultery, give me a medal. Right? Like, I never committed any atrocities, go me. Right? Like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know on a Martin Luther biography. I don't know that I've ever read one. Because most of the ones I know of, like Here I Stand and all that, are hagiography of Luther, who was not Agios. Salvation is something, again, that's eternal. Right? It's not a thing that you possess. Like, oh, okay, now salvation complete. Now I can move on with other things. Well, there's a bunch of words that get used for sin, and they get used in different ways by different authors. You get these bad etymology things about missing the mark and all this. That's about the Greek word and everything. But there's sins, there's trespasses, there's sin singular, like as a sort of force that's active in the universe, the way St. Paul uses it.
Us against the world.
Sorry.
But in every case, just not doing evil stuff doesn't, like, entitle you to God's blessings. Like, if I don't do anything bad, I'm entitled to, right? Like, when you were a kid, when your parents buy that, like, if you just said, hey, I followed all of your rules today, you owe me a pony. Like, would they buy you a pony? Like...
Judge, jury, executioner!
I shall not be removed so
Yeah, it might be good. There used to be a big brick of a paperback book of Martin Luther's writings. So I read a lot more just primary source Luther, right? Just read his stuff from across the range of his life. He literally went crazy, like mental illness by the end of his life. I mean, I think he was mentally ill at the start. I think that was part of the problem, his neurosis about his own sinfulness. But by the end of his life, he was like a genocidal maniac. Like, literally. It's not just his thing on the Jews and their lies that Luther wrote, where he's calling for synagogues to be burned down and Torah scrolls to be burned, which he thought were part of the Bible. So I don't know why he would burn them. But the peasants' revolt that he called on the German princes to basically round up and execute the peasants. I mean, we all find the peasants revolting, but the Anabaptists, who he called for their mass murder, I mean, Luther just went off the beam, like, at the end of his life. I don't have a ton of thoughts on Rene Guénon. Not a big fan or interest of mine. I saw something. I need that last one repeated. I saw why is or what is something in the Orthodox Church. I assume it was about Gomorrah. Why is Gomorrah in the Orthodox Church? Who is Gomorrah? What is Gomorrah? I don't know that anti-Semitism is all that popular in Orthodox converts. I mean, first we have to identify what exactly anti-Semitism is. Because, like, the Jewish Anti-Defamation League's definition of anti-Semitism is ludicrous, right? So, yeah, that's part of the problem, is that anti-Semitism is thrown around so much now that it almost doesn't mean anything. Like, Oh, you said something critical of the modern nation of Israel, you're an anti-Semite. Well, no, right? Like, so we have to define it first. And then, you know, yeah. And a lot of the things that I think are... Meister Eckhart was not a Christian. That's my thoughts on him.
Better stop that vehicle.
Yeah, see, I haven't seen a lot of that. Are you on Twitter? Is that the problem here? Twitter is not real. Twitter is fake. I know there's a lot of that on Twitter, but I don't really run into much of that among actual converts at my actual parish. You get some conspiracy theory stuff. Well, hopefully whoever the priest is dealing with that. But
I have suffered severe damage.
you know, you get some conspiracy theory stuff like, I'm in an Antiochian parish. There are folks from the Middle East who are a little bit into conspiracy theories. It makes sense if you think about it, right? If you lived your whole life in a country like Lebanon, where, like, neighboring countries can just invade you whenever they want to, and, like, blow things up and kill people, and there's no consequences because Israel and the U.S. decide that's what they want to do that week, right? You can kind of understand why somebody from that country would have a weird view of Israelis and Jewish people. You know what I mean? It doesn't make them correct. It's just you can kind of understand why they feel that way. Like, most of their life, their destiny has been controlled by people in boardrooms in the United States and Israel. That's just true. And so they tend to get a little bit conspiratorial about it. And any good conspiracy theory is eventually going to involve the Jews and the Jesuits, right? Like, you can't have a conspiracy theory without the Jews and the Jesuits, right? Yeah, the Freemasons, right? So you get some of that. But I mean, frankly, right now, if you're going to be a Nazi, it seems you're going to be a Calvinist. They seem to be bigger on the whole Nazi thing right now than Orthodox are. But I'm sure there are people with problematic views. People show up at the Orthodox Church as inquirers with all kinds of problematic views, right? Like, on all kinds of things. Not just theology, but all kinds of things. And the part of the goal of catechesis and why we make people waiting here and why we go through all the catechesis is to kind of help people come to their senses and come to a more balanced Orthodox view of the world and way of thinking about things. So, whether it's far right or far left politics or conspiracy theory or whatever it is, right? Like, not to mention, of course, sins, bad theology, right? Like, the whole shebang, right?
Don't give them another inch.
So hopefully the priest in whatever parish has those guys showing up if they really do have problematic, like, you know, National Socialist views.
Leave them to Khonshu.
I would not lump Jay Dyer and Nick Fuentes together. Those are not... Frankly, lumping anybody together with Nick Fuentes at this point is like... height of insult. That's... I mean, a Hispanic gay Nazi. Come on. So, yeah. No, don't lump Jay Dyer in with him. A lot of Jay Dyer's conspiracy theory stuff I honestly think is entertainment. Sort of labeled for entertainment purposes only, you know. But again, right, people show up, I said this earlier, people show up at the church for all kinds of reasons. The only good reason to become an Orthodox Christian is because that's where you find Christ. But people show up wherever they're at, and your job as a priest is to help guide them to that place where they need to be. Right? Our job is not to weed out people at the door who we find unlikable, right? But it is our job to not fully bring people into the church until they are more balanced and until those things have been kind of straightened out. Right, when St. Paul says that in Romans, he's talking about all as in both Jews and non-Jews, Gentiles. Favorite alchemical element is aether.
The right heroes could make all the difference.
The dogs are doing well. The dogs are doing well. They are mostly at peace. Favorite chemical element? I'm going to say hydrogen.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
Something has changed in you, Ileana. You are not the innocent child I once knew.
Rule the demonic hordes of Limbo for long enough and...
Yeah, I said earlier today, I think if you watch these Q&A streams, people are like, oh wow, you can play a game and answer theological questions at the same time? I'm like, yeah, but if you watch my gameplay on these streams and you watch my gameplay when I upload a game where I'm just playing and I'm locked in, there's a definite difference in gameplay quality. Favorite philosophers other than Nietzsche, Aristotle, Heidegger. Heidegger, as I've said before, on air, on Ancient Faith, is my favorite Nazi. I mean, if you've got to pick a favorite Nazi, who else is it going to be? Other than Martin Heidegger, right? Like, thinking anybody else would be highly suspect, at minimum, right?
A battle awaits us.
No. Heidegger's better. I'm not into anime. I've seen all of the classic anime. I've seen Akira. I've seen Ghost of the Shell. I've seen Appleseed. I've seen Barefoot Gen. I've seen Angel Cop. I've seen Ninja Scroll. I've seen Ninja Resurrection. I've seen a lot of anime. It's just not my thing. Not into it. It's the one hole in my omni nerdery. Is like anime and manga. My wife does watch some anime. She's not huge into anime. She's not like full weeb, but she watches more than I do. So I'm not opposed to anime. I don't hate anime. It's just not my thing. I watch it and I'm like, oh, that's all right.
You get away!
I shall not be removed so easily. I shall not be removed so easily.
So did anybody watch the Doctor Who season finale? Have we any Whovians in the chat?
They're right behind you.
I'll take that as a no. Or that there was a commercial. Last time for tonight, if you have an Amazon Prime, you could use it to sub to the channel and skip the ads. Don't have to give me any money. Yeah, I've often said that the whole issue with the Oriental Orthodox,
Don't mess with the amazing
the Oriental Orthodox churches, is that we can't sort of talk to them and have dialogue with them as a unit because they're on such totally different pages in terms of their separate traditions, right? Like, it has to be a thing where we talk to each of them, right? Dialogue with the Copts, a dialogue with the Ethiopians, a dialogue with the Armenians, right? Because there's different issues to be addressed in each one. And sometimes even, like in the Coptic Church right now, there are multiple factions that are on very different pages, theologically.
You stop them in their tracks.
So even just having a dialogue between the Orthodox churches and the Coptic Church is difficult right now. No, Morbius was, Mind of Morbius was a Fourth Doctor serial. Now, they've done some sequels on Big Finish. But Mind of Morbius was an infamous Fourth Doctor serial, actually, because in it, when Morbius and the Doctor did telepathic combat, they showed 4 faces that were supposed to be previous... Yes, supposed to be previous incarnations of the Doctor. There were supposed to be previous incarnations of the Doctor, but who obviously weren't. Like, weren't people we'd ever seen before. And those Mind of Morbius Doctors got reintroduced into Doctor Who canon in The Timeless Child. The big controversial thing from Chris Chibnall's run as showrunner. I think current Doctor Who has gotten pretty good. It has the same issues it always has, right? Like, the first season with the new Doctor, he's usually kind of figuring things out and finding his footing. And then it gets much better the second season. And then usually after the third season he leaves, although the most recent Doctor and shoot he got was even worse. Because the second season, it just started to get good, and then he left. Like, so it's like, what? I was just starting to dig the vibe, and now you have vanished. Oh, Big Finish is way better. No, Big Finish is way better than the current television. Like, by a long shot. I mean, that's agreed in terms of comparative quality. Yeah, Big Finish is way better. Oh, the movie Morbius? So, I was on a plane flight, a long plane flight. I don't remember which one it was. But I decided to just watch the worst movies I could find for free on the plane. So I watched Moonfall and Morbius back to back. And Moonfall is the movie where they discover that the moon is falling toward the Earth. So they send astronauts to the moon to stop it. And the astronauts who go to the moon discover that the moon is actually a giant alien machine and not a moon. That's no moon. And have to reprogram it to go back into orbit, and then everything's fine. So that was a great movie. And then I watched Morbius after that, and that was basically Jared Leto Joker versus the 11th Doctor, until the climax when it was like two farts in a fight. So I didn't really understand what the point of the big climactic fart battle was. But your mileage may vary. Okay, last game. First character I see in the chat is the character I play.
You'll need a top-notch team to
Okay,
win this one.
I'm Grooting it up. My favorite Semitic language is Hebrew. I know that's boring, but... So, recently in the comics, they had somebody yell, "It's Morbin time," at Morbius. And he became very angry with them. So they did actually incorporate that into the comics.
Hey, mind if I join you, pal?
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
I enjoy Blues Brothers, but it is not the greatest movie ever.
Ended up in these situations.
I cannot agree to that.
This is a nice spot.
If you ask my wife, she will tell you that Goodfellas is the greatest movie ever.
5, 4, 3,
And I will say this about Goodfellas. Any movie that features a pistol whipping is better than any movie that does not feature a pistol whipping. Oh, we've got one of these really good Iron Man players who just spams their chest beam at you.
Not too many things impressive. Storm, drink Steve Clark and impress. My lightning power is still converging.
I am Groot! Slow down!
Team play. That's me.
You're halfway there. Keep going.
Iron suit cannot withstand a psychic blade.
No pleasure in that. But it had
Coen
to be
Brothers
Someone
movies.
scratch my back.
Uh,
I'll get you to avenge his tower.
so, I have some deep cut Coen Brothers movies that I really like. For example, The Man Who Wasn't There. Super underrated.
Vehicle reached a checkpoint. Momentum.
But probably my favorite... Adam West is my favorite Batman actor. But probably my favorite Coen Brothers movie. Edging out Even Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which would probably be a close second. Man Who Wasn't There is probably third. My favorite is actually Intolerable Cruelty. Which is, again, a little bit of a deep cut. But it was from George Clooney's Golden Age. George Clooney had a period there where he was doing Cary Grant type roles, and Intolerable Cruelty is just an old school, like it's a movie that could have been made in like the late 40s or early 50s, like with Cary Grant and a popular actress. It's George Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones. He's a divorce lawyer who's renowned for having created an impenetrable prenuptial agreement. And she's a divorcee. And, you know, things happen from there. Yeah, we're going out on an ugly one.
Extermination!
I did like Hail Caesar more than most people.
I am ready to put on a show.
Don't let anything stand in your way.
But the best George Clooney movie from that era, hands down, is Out of Sight. With a very young and new to acting Jennifer Lopez in it. And Luis Guzman. And any movie with Luis Guzman in it is better than any movie without Luis Guzman in it.
So close. This is your big chance.
Oh, first death.
Watch me soar. It pleases me to be helpful. Chin up.
That is much better.
Another epic victory. Big win.
Yeah, that was definitely shoulder healing, I guess. So yes, that was the last game. You guys know what you need to do. You need to go watch Out of Sight and Intolerable Cruelty and have yourself a George Clooney double feature. I'll expect reports from people during the next live stream, which will be a while because I've got to go to the Parish Life Conference this week. But, so it'll probably be next Sunday before I stream again. But, yeah, thank you, everybody.